Boom.
Snap.
Oh, snap, son. Where'd Creamer go? He disappeared.
Yeah, kids.
Got the youngins yelling.
Mm-hmm.
So we can wait for Creamer to come back because I do want him to hear some of these. We could just...
Perfect timing. You're in time for story time with Jeff.
Story time with Jeff.
We're gonna put a little
jingle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least like a
Anytime he
cool
tells us a
sound
story.
effect, right?
Yeah.
Like a swipe effect.
Like
Like
the reading rainbow thing that goes across.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
it's so good.
Actually, me and Brian were talking about doing a little parody reading rainbow jingle. You know,
Really?
the
That's so
reading
random.
rainbow, but we got to figure something else out. I
So
don't know.
good. Good times.
Anywho, so some of the articles from this book, man. I don't know if you guys can actually see this.
It's a little bit blurry.
It's a little small. That's okay. I'll read it to you guys. This first one is the ancient burial ground at Black Creek, and this is in Charlemont, May 7th, 1953. It says along the Susquehanna River in Indiana County, Pennsylvania, a major Indian burial site was uncovered. Altogether, 49 skeletons were exhumed, the tallest being 8 feet tall. These skeletons were reportedly taken to the Harrisburg Museum for reassembly and then shipped to the Smithsonian for further study. However, the Smithsonian denies any knowledge of them.
Interesting.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
On the site of the William Rea Farm, circa 1871, 1880, to wow, it's kind of small for me too. Conemaugh Township, just west of the mouth of Black Legs Creek, skeletons of men, probably Indians, were found. Noted local historian Clarence Stephenson says one of the skeletons is of a giant nearly 8 feet tall. The giant skeleton measured 89 inches from the top of the skull to the phalanges of the feet. It was covered with small stones, lay on the back, and measured 26 inches across the chest.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So I think we've talked about this too. You guys know, like, just the history of humans, right? Like, we're actually, according to science, right, and according to archaeology, we're actually taller now on average than we have been all through history. You guys have heard this?
Right. Yeah.
And so, you know,
I
everybody
didn't get that memo for myself, but
Did you not?
no, I'm pretty short still.
I
didn't get the, getting taller. Well, I guess compared to our grandma, I'm taller than her.
She is short, that's for sure. I'm short too, though. Don't feel bad. Charlie's just tall. You just feel short because Charlie's tall. So yeah, 8 feet back, a couple hundred years ago is huge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like double a man's height.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, maybe not double.
Okay, I'm sorry about watching. When we pop up on the screen, my blinks are so delayed. They're so long, and I'm like, is that how I really blink, or is it glitching? And then it's like one eye closed.
You're always looking at the blinking and the eyes closed in the pictures, Jade.
I know. It's like a thing, I think. Like, maybe I blink really slow and I just don't know it.
It's the eyes, man. It's the eyes.
These records just disappear from the Smithsonian, like
because they don't want us to know.
Yeah, the hidden history, right? And there's a lot more of that. You're going to see the theme carry on for sure. Here's another report of 68 skeletons averaging 7 feet tall. 68 skeletons averaging 7 feet tall. So it's a whole tribe or a whole clan or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, like a whole little town of giants back in the day.
Yep.
That's crazy to me. Like to think, you know, it could be a really tall person every now and then. That's not unreasonable. Like that doesn't mean there's giants, right? Like some people just get freakishly tall and they don't have freakishly tall parents. You know what I mean? Necessarily.
On my side of the
Your family is really tall.
my mom's side of the family, if my grandma didn't marry my grandpa or whatever, have kids with him and had kids with a tall guy, we probably would be pushing 8 feet, because apparently I don't know where the tallness started, but my grandma
Giants.
at 65 or whatever she is still 6 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle's 6'2". My mom's like 5'9", which is kind of ish tallish for a lady. My grandma's brother is like 6'8". His son is 7'4" or 7'2". My grandma's like half sister is, I think, 6 foot. Her
The moral
oldest
of the
sister is like
story
6
is
foot.
he probably came from the giants.
Well, no, what I'm saying is if you had like selective mating and you didn't die off, you could end
That's
up with one family with 68 people in it that are all averaging super tall.
If that's what they were doing.
If that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
You know, you have another tribe come in and wipe out
but yeah,
the whole
that's
family,
the thing. It's like
and then bury them all.
One tall guy here and there, a couple tall
68's
people,
a lot,
but 68 all in one place, buried. I want to know, were
Maybe
they
they
buried
died
at
at
the
a
same
family
time?
reunion.
Did they die at the same time? Like,
well, it says here that they were all, let's see where I see it. 68 men estimated have been buried at least 700 or 800 years. That doesn't, oh, never mind. Says, the average height indicated by the skeletons was 7 feet, but many were taller. Evidence of the gigantic size of these men was seen in huge axes found beside the bones. So they even had like giant tools with them. So it wasn't, you know what I mean? And you know,
crazy.
Today, right, we would be like, oh, that's probably just fake, right? Like, because people make fake shit all the time.
Fake
How do you
news.
know? And I'm not saying people didn't always make fake shit throughout history. However, this article's from 1916, from the Charleston Daily Mail. You know, it's not like we're pulling this off of, you know what I'm saying, wherever, right?
Yeah, and it's like, you know, it's a book. It doesn't have the same like back then reach as like the internet does now.
Right.
You know?
The only people who probably ever read this were the people in the town. You know, a few of them, right?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it is really interesting. And to think that you don't see these articles now. If one of these articles was published today by CNN or MSNBC or something like that, like it would be huge news. You know what I mean? But
right.
This seems to be like pretty regular occurrence, you know. So this is crazy. So check this one out, right?
What is that?
The Horned Skull of Sayre, Pennsylvania. Sayre is a borough in Bradford County, Pennsylvania, 59 miles northwest of Scranton. The exact year is not clear, but during the 1880s, a large burial mound was discovered in Sayre. It was reported that a group of Americans uncovered several strange human skulls and bones. The skeletons belonged to anatomically normal men, with the exception of bony projections located about 2 inches above the eyebrows. It appeared that the skulls had horns. The bones were characterized as giant, as they were representative of people over 7 feet tall. Scientists estimated that the bodies had been buried around 1200 CE. The archaeological discovery was made by a reputable group of antiquarians, nailed it, including Dr. J.P. Donebu, G.P. Donebu, a Pennsylvania state dignitary of the Presbyterian Church. According to the check this out. According to the historical accounts, the Sayre horned giant bones were sent to the American Investigating Museum in Philadelphia. The artifacts were later reported missing.
Sound familiar?
I'm sensing a common theme here.
Also, weren't both of those in Pennsylvania?
Well,
No,
this whole
one's in
book is
North
about the
Carolina.
Americans.
Carolina.
Yeah, that's weird.
That is really scary looking, actually.
A 7-foot tall, anatomically correct
With horns. Like,
with
why?
horns. Dude, imagine what 7-foot tall looks like. Hold on, I have a picture here. I'm gonna try to show you guys if I can find it. Okay, that's not gonna work. Hold on. I'm just gonna have to.
Have you ever met someone that's 7 foot tall?
I
just gonna
told
fast
you,
forward
my
to it.
friend.
Oh, but have you met them?
Yeah,
Oh, you have?
makes me look short.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might feel how I feel next to a
I
7
don't
foot
have
tall
it
person.
saved in here.
Yeah, it's pretty jarring, and just like all of the proportions are just.
I can imagine too, especially if you've never been considered short, to then have to look up to somebody like that.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Like one of the guys that works with us, he's taller than me. He's like 6'5", 6'6".
That's wild. I'm gonna find this picture at some point here in a minute. But so check this out. This is gonna be
this
kind of
one?
This is one of the mounds, right? So these mounds are littered all over, not just North America, just like the Americas, right? And probably, I mean, all over the world essentially.
Mhm.
But look how big this mound is. I mean, it's hard to see, but this is a person standing here. This tiny, like literally the
Boy.
size of my mouse, smaller than my mouse, is a human, right?
Mhm.
So conventional archaeology says that this was just tribes of primitive people, right? That were using sticks and stones and clamshell shovels to like dig and do all their, work, but they're
Mhm.
building giant literal mountains, right, out of the earth. And this is where these giants were found, are in these mounds. These are the burial mounds, or these giant mounds. So, they dig into these things and boom, they find 78 or 68 giants, you know what I mean? And obviously you can't just go digging around in them. There's like all kinds of laws and shit, right? The bureaucracy has gotten a hold of it, and it's like you're not going just to go show up to dig there. You know what I mean? Most of them are national landmarks,
Right.
and for good reason, but also like
There's history in there.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like we could find out some serious shit if they would just do some honest digging, you know what I mean? Especially if they've already found giants.
Do you have any of like the pictures of places like we watched in that one video the other day?
I do.
Yeah, let's talk
Oh.
about that.
So
Yeah,
Saxe woman, right? Sexy
I
woman.
still can't get over the name.
Saxe woman, right? I believe this is Peru, Cusco.
Okay,
right?
but the other one, we watched this video live in the what's that app again? Discord.
Mhm.
And the first place that he was talking about, the guy in the video, was Lake Titicaca or something like that.
Lake Titicaca.
And then he's like, and then they moved over this way, Sexe Woman. And I was like, what the heck?
We're all
These
children,
names.
especially in the Discord chat. If you really want to have fun, get in the Discord chat because we're all children.
But
in
I
there.
mean, come on.
And then we moved over to Big Booty Mountain.
And he's saying it so serious. Like, come on, bro. You know it's funny.
Oh man, yeah. Every time he would say like Titicaca, somebody would turn the mic on and be like, me. It definitely wasn't me.
Anyways.
Man, that's good. But anyway, so like check this out, right? Again, this is like supposed to be the primitive peoples in Peru. Again, I'm not 100% sure this is Peru, but let's just go with that, right? It's one of those places. They're supposed to be doing this with stone tools and primitive knowledge, right? And they don't know what's going on. But what he pointed out in that documentary, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. You see these little stones up at the top? This is what they've proven to be, like the Aztec or the Incan, like depending on which site you're looking at, like they find smaller construction like this. And
which
it's
makes
always
more sense.
Right. Of course, this is something they could do. These are all stones that are, big enough that a dude or whatever, like you can manage it. Yeah. Right. And they're always on top of these giant stones that are literally placed together with such intricacy, right? I mean, like they're
Perfectly.
melted. At least they look melted to me. You know what I mean? And the guy even points out that they all have these little prongs on them. And he doesn't ever say what they are. He doesn't speculate because he was an archaeologist in this talk. You know what I mean? So he didn't do a whole lot of speculating. It was more of just like, here's what we found, you know, and what we believe this is. You know what I mean?
Well, look at that lady though. Like,
Yeah.
the rocks are like, some of them are as tall as she is, and some of them are like
Look at this.
2-3 times as tall as she is.
Have you ever seen this before, Charlie?
No, that's crazy.
Yeah. And this is on top of a mountain. Okay. So like, this is not,
Are they like individual stones, or are they just hewn?
they're individual stones, but there's no mortar. They're just placed together perfectly. And they don't know how they shape them to,
Yeah, that's
to
crazy.
match like that. You know what I mean?
Right, because you're not going to find so many smooth edges in nature that fit together like a puzzle like that.
Especially that
it's
big.
just not
Especially
realistic.
that
Yeah.
big. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Well, I mean, they
And
can
how
do
do you
some-
get them there and put them there like
They
that?
could do some pretty good. Well, I was saying putting the rocks there is one thing, but like carving that, if and smooth and everything. I mean, you've seen what they do with marble and stuff, and they make statues.
Yeah, but what the guy was
So-
saying was the type of tools that we say
Yeah,
that
we could
we
claim they
say they
used.
had at that
Right.
time would not be able to do that.
No, I don't think so.
And not only that, but where this is, like I said, was on top. It's on top of a mountain, and it's above the tree line where the trees grow. This is
Yeah.
like, you know, X feet, hundreds of feet, or 1,000 feet above where the trees grow. So there is no like, let's use the trees with the old school log roll method. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That we used to see. Here's more pictures of this, man. So check this out,
Whoa.
dude. It's a huge complex of these. Right, and you can, if you look really close, you can see the little ones
Mhm.
all on top. It's as if the tribes that we learned about in school, that we know about, the Inca, the Aztec, the Mayans, you know, the Olmec, maybe even, or the Olmec might have been the ones that made these. Who knows, really? People are still speculating on that, but it's as if they showed up and found this, and they were like, "Oh, let's just build our little stuff here, and we'll turn this into our own structure." You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what this looks like to me? This looks like the bottom of like a giant tower or something. Like an alien
Yeah.
race built a giant stone tower, and like this is just the very bottom of it that's still here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Could be.
crazy.
There's nothing else like there's nothing that shows what the purpose of it was.
I mean, they have
left. Like there's
archaeologists.
not rooms and stuff, or
Yeah, I mean, there you go. Like there's obviously there's theories, right? They go and dig up stuff. And here's the thing, right? So they know for sure that the Inca and the Aztec and these different cultures built certain areas of these structures, right? Like they have done
Wait,
the
all
digging.
all of that is old, or
No. So like I'm not a professional, so I don't know exactly what is what.
Uh-huh.
I'm just gonna like point at shit and wing it here just to make a point. But you know, let's say
Mhm.
for instance, like these stones would all be the megalithic ones, and maybe like a couple of the main walls would all be like the ancient giant stones, and then the newer cultures, right, that we know
what I'm
of
wondering is like, how did they know
built
to
all
make that
this.
design
That's the other
when
thing
they
too.
can't look at it from like the eagle eye point of view?
That's the thing too. Like, how did they build this without the?
It's so specific. Like, oh, a circle, and then these lines that are like perfectly spaced, and then another circle.
And that's like a perfect circle.
Yeah, and here's like a really good shot of like the difference.
Yeah, like when you're on the ground, you're like, oh, it feels like a circle, you know, or you don't have that like, okay, I don't
It's like
know. You just
perfect
you're not seeing it
geometry and
right.
perfect
That thing looks
alignments.
Well,
perfect.
in order to have stuff geometrically shaped, you have to have like really, really good math skills and measurement tools. So it's like they can't be as primitive as we, make them out to be. If they can do math like that,
Okay.
it's just cool enough.
Yeah,
That actually almost blows my mind more. 'Cause I'm
Yeah.
like, that's like, how do you know you're building that design just
It's not even to me
that
like,
perfectly?
how do they know they're building it? It's like, what, they didn't build the stuff. I don't want to say they didn't build stuff just to build it, but my intuition would say they didn't have time to just build things for the sake of building them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, it looks cool, and then we're just going to move on.
Yeah,
Like, it
like
had
there's
to
got
be
to be
like
a
some
purpose.
some and a clearly mathematical purpose for like the Aztec temples or whatever, the pyramids. You can like tell the seasons and the time of year. You know, like these buildings were tools. So when they build something that's that intricate, it's like they found the framework for a tool. Like, hey, this looks like one of our calculating devices, and then boom, they go and build. That's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy. Yeah, this is a picture of a bird that we know about, right? This isn't even like some hidden shit.
Albatross.
The teratom, the largest bird to
Pterodon.
fly. It could reach speeds of 150 miles an hour, right? And this is just a reconstruction of the bird. Obviously, it's in some museum somewhere, but so we know that stuff was giant, right? Like think about dinosaurs. They were just giant lizards, right? We know that there was giant birds and giant fish, like the megalodon and like, you know, all that stuff, right? At one point, even conventional science says, and this is for the people who think that giant humans would be impossible, right? But even science says that, you know, back in the day, the gravity was less because there was less accumulated mass on the surface, right? From the millions of years of buildup or whatever. So they say there was less mass, so there was less gravity. They say there was more oxygen, and they say that a lot of their shit was a lot bigger. The megafauna, you know, the giant mammoths and the sloth, smooth faced sloth, or all that shit, right? So it's all like, there's no reason that there couldn't have been giant humans in my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I don't actually find it hard to imagine that somebody can't believe that. Seems pretty like maybe not on a full scale, like giants ruled the earth type thing, but that there were giants, it seems pretty easy to believe, in my opinion, because there's plenty of tall people now. You know what I mean? Like, why couldn't it have been possible then?
Yeah. I mean, you got to think too, like back in the day, you wouldn't go find a sickly person to have a child with. You'd find somebody who's also big and strong. And then you wouldn't just be like, well, I think we're just thinking 3. Like, I think we're going to be good at 3. It's like as many as you can, and you just pump them out. So, you know, you got, say Genghis Khan was a giant. How many people now have giant DNA? Because of how many impregnations he cost.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that were apparently like giant in history. You know what I mean? There's like I can't think of the guy's name, but there's like a king. I think he was like a Scottish king, and maybe he was like an Irish king, you know, back in medieval times. But there's accounts of him being like, you know, 8-10 feet tall. So it's always like these rulers, you know. And then if you look at like what do they call them, hieroglyphs in Egypt, there's a lot of hieroglyphs where you see like this huge difference in like one person that's usually like depicted as like the nobles or the pharaohs or this, you know, these important people, and then you usually have what looks like the workers of what they called slaves for a long time, that are always like tiny, right, compared to these other depictions in the hieroglyphs.
That's what I like about the 300 when what's the bad guy in 300? He's like super tall.
Xerxes?
Xerxes?
Xerxes, is that it?
Yeah, Xerxes. He's like super tall.
Yeah, he is, right? Oh yeah, I didn't even,
with the big deep voice.
Yeah, he's like 9 feet tall. Yeah, dude.
Why do you talk to me like this?
And you know, that's crazy.
You're disrespecting me.
That's crazy to think about.
We
You
will
say
wipe
that.
out your army. Dude, I'm saying it's like you say, predictive programming, you know?
Yeah, and
it's like we know it, you know, even though a lot of people don't acknowledge it. It's like, if you're going to go and make an ancient bad guy, he's going to be gigantic, because that's who is most likely to be the bad guy. Or, you know, the ruler is just going to be somebody who's freakishly tall. And if you're going to think he's a god, well, he has to be imposing. So Yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy.
I could be Tiny Tim.
Why not?
And they
Yeah.
say
Now I
that
want to go
Sure.
back. I want to go back and watch the 300 and see if there's any other nuggets in there.
they say the Tatarian Empire was the same region that the Ottoman Empire was, which was the same region that the Persian Empire was, which the Emperor Xerxes was the Persian Emperor, which is the same area that we're talking about here, right? That like all of the shit would have,
Interesting.
yeah. So I feel like that air conditioner is super duper loud.
We can't hear it.
I had some more pictures. Let me find them real quick because they were really interesting. I think I didn't save them properly because that's how I roll.
Mm-hmm.
I love the slow fade out.
You like that little
Of what?
transition? It's nice.
Oh, I think I blinked.
You blinked that
I didn't see it. Apparently, I blink really slowly. And like not both eyes at the same time.
Boom. See this? You guys see that? Okay, I think so.
Yeah.
Snaps.
What's this guy's name? I can't remember this guy's name. Charlie, you know this guy's name?
Nah, but he's on the Guinness record of tallest person ever.
Yeah, Wardlow. Wardlow. Anyways,
Something
he's like
that.
8'11".
He died from being so tall.
This guy's
How?
8'11". Okay. Remember those accounts we were reading? That there was giants that were averaging 7 feet and a lot of them taller. And one of them
Yeah.
was 9 feet in one of the articles, was it not?
Mm-hmm.
This tall.
Dude's tall.
You know what I'm saying? And not just like one, like this guy's one in
Mhm.
in billions. He's the tallest man in the world ever so far, right? So one in billions. No, we're talking about they dug up how many? 68 of them in one mound.
Yeah, in one place. Crazy.
Yeah, it's apparently like when you start getting to that height, the human anatomy doesn't grow proportionally to the height. So you eventually get too tall or too heavy for your bones.
Right.
So that guy's probably close to 600 pounds.
Right.
Whoa.
And here's the
even though he's a lanky guy, so your
Yeah.
bones don't grow in diameter proportional to the height. So you actually become too brittle to carry, and then your organs don't grow in strength enough to get blood and nutrients everywhere. So he apparently had horrible blood circulation, and I think he died of a heart attack. His heart just couldn't pump enough blood, or maybe asphyxiation or something like that. Just wouldn't get enough oxygen.
So
I think that's how he died.
question. Do we think that the people that were giants were just regular old people that were really, really, really tall giants? Or do we think that they had something like special about them, or alien giants, or
right.
what?
So I don't think that most of the accounts of ancient giants are like this guy. I don't remember the actual
Right.
term of the
Okay.
disease. Right. I'm aware that this is a disease. People always be like, that's a disease, bro. I know. Right.
Right.
I'm just bringing this guy up to show you the height. Right. But
Mhm.
I don't think that the Nephilim or the giants that we're talking about are just anomalies. And for multiple reasons. That one article I just read, you specifically said that the giant that they dug up with horns was anatomically correct. That means it didn't have whatever this thing is called,
Right.
that the
True.
giantism disease, right?
Good point. Yeah.
So it was anatomically correct. Also, looking at the ruins around the world, not just the ones that we just looked at in Central America, but if you look at like Egypt, right? Look at a lot of the ancient Roman shit. A lot of people don't realize that. I forget which temple it is. One of the temples, Baalbek, the temple of Jupiter, I think it is on top of it. And that the temple of Jupiter is like this awesome Roman structure, right? Already that's what people go look at mostly, the tourists. It's built on top of a megalithic structure, and the stones are like ginormous. Like I don't remember the number. I think Graham Hancock says it's like 120 tons estimated.
Wow.
You know what I mean? These giant stones.
mean, you
that-
couldn't even do that with like modern cranes.
No.
Hmm.
So I think that these giants weren't just deformed or just abnormally big. I think that they had supernatural abilities as well. You know what I mean? Similar to what you might find in the stories
Yeah, I
of the
mean,
Bible.
that makes
or
sense. Like, what you're saying is true about people like that, if their bones are so brittle and all that, they wouldn't be carrying this big weight,
Mm-mm.
you know, like,
They'd be strong,
but
but they wouldn't be able to.
it
no,
would be
proportionally.
painful. It would
Yeah.
be damaging to them,
Yeah.
probably. I don't know, but
so
I was really hoping you're gonna put that up. Modern day giants. That picture is mind-boggling. Like I literally stared at it for like 5 minutes trying to figure out a way to explain it. I'm gonna stop talking for a second so your picture shows back up.
oh, you have that setting. You can turn that setting off, by the way.
Oh, we
that
can.
yeah, you
Oh,
can.
that'd be good.
Yeah, so I'm not saying, I just thought I saw this today and it was funny because last night in the Discord I was doing the same kind of like little spiel with the people in the Discord last night. So when I saw this today, I was like, oh, what, like, the synchronicities, we're always talking about synchronicities. If you just like go with the things or whatever.
For the people that are just listening, we're looking at the picture of Biden and his wife with Jimmy Carter and his wife. And the Bidens look gigantic compared to them. It is hilarious and weird because I just can't figure out the explanation of why they both look so big. I mean, like, we do photography, so it's like I can understand, if the angle, but they're both on different sides of the picture.
Even the
like
furniture
different
looks
angles.
small.
Right.
It looks like a
Right.
dollhouse. Look how low the
It looks
paintings
like
are
a
on the back of the wall.
dollhouse.
On the back wall, look
It-
how low the paintings are.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. And I could say, like, maybe if one of them looked big, it would make a little more sense. Like the angle, the way they're standing in proportion to the other person, maybe the point of view makes it look like that. But they're on opposite sides of the picture and they both look huge. That
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. And if it was like, say, like a wide angle lens or like a fishbowl lens to get like a whole wide view, they would be like distorted, right?
But you can
Slightly.
correct that.
You think?
Well, yeah, they would never post a picture where it's all that distortion.
Here's my thing though. But like,
why
like
would they
what,
need
If
such a
Joe
wide
Biden
angle?
stood up, if Joe Biden stood up in this picture, that picture of Jimmy Carter would be at his stomach, and nobody hangs a picture stomach height.
Right.
I mean, look how, if he stood up, look where that picture is going to be.
I know.
It's going to be in his chest.
No, it's gonna be
Who
like
hangs a picture chest high?
probably at
dude,
his
the
hip.
coffee table next to Jimmy Carter is literally lower than Joe Biden's knees.
Well, I mean,
Like, look at the size of their eyeballs compared to. Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying
That's a tiny
I'm
table.
not saying
yeah, but that might be a
that
tiny
Joe
table.
Biden is a Nephilim or that he's a giant bloodline carrier. I did make that post in that joke today in the group. However, if that ended up being the case, I would not be surprised. You know what I'm saying?
It's just
It's
weird.
very weird.
It's just a really strange picture.
Especially
Yeah,
when you
that's-
get into all
And
the stuff.
yeah, like, okay, your point is they wouldn't put like a picture that's all distorted up. Why would they put a picture that makes them look like that up
exactly.
if it's not
Yeah.
reality?
No,
Predictive
I'm just, yeah,
programming.
the
Like,
lens distortion where it's gonna be
Anybody
all,
looks
like,
at that
weird,
picture
but
and
yeah,
is like, huh?
correcting it might have made it.
They
look
could have been
even
like, let
more
me
weird.
retake that. You guys look like freakishly huge.
Yeah, yeah, they look like they're on a mini set.
And I don't think they would need a wide angle lens for that photo either. It's not so many people in such a big space that they need a wide angle
It's
lens or
not that.
anything.
It could be just close.
I don't know.
Not that there's so many people.
Maybe.
So I
The
wanted to
only
show
thing
you.
I can see is it looks like it might be, and this could be the reason why everybody's feet look kind of big. And so it could be that the camera, the lens has got an angle to it.
It's just
So
looking
the way,
straight
or the way
down
that
the
they,
legs.
yeah, they brought the picture horizontally, and that would give the illusion that the wall is shorter and that they're way bigger. That's the only thing I could think of. So it's actually like,
Well,
You know, I'm not saying it is or it isn't anything, but it is.
it is
we need to try
weird
and
looking, though.
replicate it.
It's weird and it's
Do a
fun.
test.
Oh, you could, like, if I open up Lightroom and I just warp the picture on on
Right,
this
but
plane.
why would you do that? Is
If
what I'm
if
saying.
there was
but
something in the ceiling that you didn't want
Yeah.
to see, or on the floor that you didn't want to see, you just
Yeah.
bring the bottom of the
I
I
picture
could
Pictures
see
forward.
that. Maybe they selected the photo and then in the final moment of edit or before
Yeah.
release, they were like, "Oh wait, there's an issue here. We need to like."
It's just very weird.
Yeah, like, but it, conspiracy fuel. It's also fun. This is the fun part of conspiracy time, right? Where you just
Yeah.
like pick a random picture off the internet and you're like, look at this shit, right? But
we never talked about on the podcast that that one video of Biden when he's like going like this, did something with his hands.
oh yeah, when he stuck his hand through
And
the
the
green
little, like-
screen thing.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
little like poofy
Hey,
sound thing.
here's what I'm gonna
And
say.
you can tell his hand like
That video went away real quick.
catch up. It did?
Well, I mean, look, you can still find the video because it went viral, but like
Yeah.
the chatter about it, all the viralness about it went
Gosh.
away real quick.
You
Psyop.
didn't see that?
I did.
Yeah.
That was
I think we did talk about it.
Yeah, I might have.
hilarious.
I
Maybe
think
we
we
did.
did. Anyway, so check this out too. I saw this in that book as well. This is a painting, and this is like anybody can find this painting. It's a painting of Benjamin West's painting of William Penn's treaty with the Lenape Indians in 1682. And what's interesting, if I zoom it in, right? What's pointed
those
out is that this
People look big.
this particular Native American gentleman here is much taller than all of the others, right? And he's also
Mhm.
white compared to all the others. And there's this whole thing about like the tall Nordic race extraterrestrials that may have been like helping people or humanity rather, for thousands of years. And they're like these tall, 6-7 foot tall Nordic beings that interbred with humanity at some point. And so some people have been pointing out like this could potentially be a depiction of that. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Or, a descendant of these Nord giants, right? What else?
Ugh, that one with the skull with the horns is so
The
freaky.
horns, man. I'm telling you, that's crazy. And the fact that it just disappears.
Why though?
So the Kandahar Giant, right? Remember we talked about this, that the
Mhm.
squad goes missing and they send out another unit to go looking for these guys, right? I found these cool pictures too. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna show these.
These are like drawings.
Yeah, I think it's like a video on YouTube, but on Google, I just like Googled Kandahar Giant and I was reading up about it and I just saw these pictures. So I nabbed them and we're using them.
Nice.
Didn't say whose they were, so I can't tell you whose they are. They're the gulags now. Yeah, so like they send the other unit out and they're looking for the missing unit, and I guess they come across this clearing. This is 2002, and they find like a bunch of military equipment, scattered around this cave entrance. And as they go to investigate, obviously what's going on, this giant, I think they say it was either 12 or 15 feet tall or something like that, red-haired giant,
Dang.
6 fingers, 6 fingers, 2 rows of teeth, and some sort of
Yikes.
shield and a spear, comes out of this cave and literally impales one of the dudes with the spear. I think I have a picture of that, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. Just jacks this dude, right? And all the other dudes just light him up, right? Obviously, as you would. They just jack Dan.
Mhm.
Dan's screaming, and then boom, they nabbed themselves a Kandahar Giant. And then all of the rumors apparently at this military base for years after this was that there was these giants, and that in the trainings when they were doing cave training, that the instructors were always telling these dudes to shoot high, and they were always wondering why to shoot high, and apparently it was because
Oh,
they would
wow.
come across these 9 to 12 foot giants in these caves.
That's crazy. Thoughts?
To me, it's like it's strange, but then we were reading on the last episode that this is also which it could play to the ethic, like the truth in this, or it could play into the fact that it's just folklore, but there is actual, like, I think Pakistani folklore about giants. They call them something else. I forget what I said they were. So even they have stories of it, which could have started there, and then some troops were just like, yeah, this happened, and then the story goes. But it's like, if it could be corroboration, it could be that's where the story came from, could be, who knows. Tell you what, I'm not getting deployed after that.
Well,
I'm not going for a second round of deployments.
I guess what would be the motivation of someone in the military to make that up? Like, just regular army guys, especially when the government is trying to keep it so hush hush. Why would they lie?
One of the things too is
you've never hung out with just dudes for that long of a time.
I guess
that's true. That's
true.
I can totally see dudes making all kinds of random shit up. Don't get me wrong. However, like, it wasn't just one person that came out and like that's where the story went. It was multiple different sources that were vetted by multiple different people that came to these conclusions. And in fact, at first, from what I hear from one of our future guests, is that they thought that these two initial reports of this, one from a shooter in the fire team that shot this thing, and the other report was from a pilot that flew one of these things out, right? They thought it was the same incident. They thought that they were talking to two different people from the same incident. And then I guess they found out years later that it was actually two different incidents. So, again, this is not like a single occurrence. It's not like there's just one giant out there. You know what I mean? There has to be some sort of breeding population, unless these things live to be thousands of years old, or, they, are in some sort of stasis, right? Or cryo freeze, or some kind of dream state for 1,000 years, maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, what do you eat when you're 15 feet tall? You have to fly through livestock and stuff.
Yeah. My idea is, honestly, you hear about all these mythologies.
And that's like in the desert, isn't it?
Yeah, that's in Afghanistan.
Like, what would they eat there?
My thing is this, right? So in like a lot of religious texts and all these different stories or whatever, prophecies, there's always like this point in time where like these entities come into our realm, right? Like they either like the dead rise, or like there's just entities that come into our realm in the end days, depending on who you talk to. So it's like, is the UFO uptick, is the Bigfoot and cryptid uptick, is the giants appearing out of these dark cave, is this all just like these other entities coming into our dimension at a higher rate? You know what I mean? That's what I think.
Like the
I don't know. It makes
space continuums unraveling.
I mean, I guess it's hard to say, is it at a higher rate, or is it just that
there's more
we have more information now than we used to have, so it's more easily accessible. You can find things out from anywhere in the world where you couldn't really do that.
Yeah, if the Kandahar thing happened 40
ago.
years ago, no one would know about it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it would just be like word of mouth from like people from the source.
It'd be on some tabloid somewhere in New York, and no one would believe it.
Well, that's the thing too, is like, you don't see articles from the 1800s that are talking about living giants. I mean, we have pictures of people that were that tall back then, but like, all the articles we have are like ancient dead ones that have been dead for hundreds of years and buried. And it's like, I don't know, it's just weird to me. There also is like the whole genetic shit. Maybe Bill Gates and Melinda Gates have been pumping out giants in the secret underground bases.
There's less people there in the world then, so they probably had more space to themselves to not be seen or found or whatever. Now we're invading their space.
Hollow Earth, maybe. I think maybe inside the inner Earth. We should do an episode on Hollow Earth.
Could be that. Why
That's
do you
what's
think
up.
Bill and Melinda Gates are getting divorced? I was seeing so many memes about, oh, she found out about the microchips, and or like she didn't want to get the microchips, so he's like, see ya.
She's putting out a tell-all in less than a month.
You think so?
That's my prediction. Less than 1 month, she's going to have everything you need to know about Bill Gates' book, or you're going to hear rumors about it, and then it's going to get the kibosh real quick.
Well, they can't kill her off.
No, well, that's it. Yes, they can. They can kill anybody.
They do her like they did.
Hashtag Melinda
Princess
Gates didn't kill
Di.
herself.
Car accident.
Yeah, seriously, let's get that started. Melinda Gates did not kill herself.
Yeah, we're gonna make that. I'm gonna make that
Before it
shirt as soon as
Either
we get off this
that, or
call.
what's going to happen?
I'm
It's going to be
uploading
the
it.
opposite. She's the real mastermind, and she kills Bill.
Wouldn't that be something?
Oh my gosh, Bill was actually like, he's just like a little.
It is the Bill and
Bill's the beta.
Melinda Foundation.
Yeah, he's the beta, and she's just been beating
She's like
him
a
for.
dominatrix wife that just like runs
Yeah.
the eugenics programs while he's just
Like,
like
you know what? I'm
doing the
divorcing you. I'm
interviews.
taking your
I don't
$129
need you
billion. I'm
anymore.
going to kill you.
I got
You're gonna
this
take
on my
all
own
the
now.
Anybody about what I've been doing.
You're gonna take all the heat, Bill, while I do all the stuff in the background. Oh man, that's
Pretty
funny.
genius, actually.
Yeah.
Women.
Yeah.
Hey,
Anyways,
I
how
was the one. I guess I am a mastermind because I was the one that figured out how to make this whole setup work.
I'm sure you did figure that out. Well, I'll give you that one. This time.
Better be careful.
This time. How long have we been going? Has it been an hour? I never keep track.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Close to an hour.
Probably somewhere around there.
Well, me and my brother, we were talking about the Nephilim last week, and I was reading, where it talks about it in the Bible, and I just had an interesting read on it, because the way that it's introduced by a time period. And so I'll read it. It's really short. I might still have it up. Yeah, I do.
Story time. with
Story
Charlie.
time. Swing.
This is Genesis 6. It says, when man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any that they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they were born children to them. These were mighty men of old, the men of renown. And that's it. It goes on to talk about the wickedness in the earth, and the Lord was going to blot man out, and he was going to use Noah to kind of start everything over again. So the common reading there is the sons of God, daughters of man, and that the sons of God were these demons.
The fallen
And they
angels.
were, breeding with women, right, basically. So I did two things when I was reading it, because I always like to play the other end of the card and go, well, hold on a second, let's actually take a look at this. The two spots, that it references, the first time it references the time period is when the sons of God saw the daughters of man. And then it says, in those times when this was when the sons of God and were taking wives of the daughters of men, there were Nephilim. And I'm like, perhaps it's not saying the Nephilim were a causation, but that was just the time period in which these people had sprung up. So it's not an actual
They were just
explanation of
there at the
where
same
they came
time.
from, but when they came from.
Right.
And then I also, which this was the real point I was sticking on, was that angels throughout the Bible, fallen angels, demons, they're the same thing. As far as the Bible is concerned, they're never referred to sons of God. That's just, they're never referred to like that. Because like a son of God is something of honor, and the fallen angels and demons are dishonor. So they're never referred to like that. And this could be the one exception, but I don't think so. And then angels breeding with mankind is just, it's just crazy. It's ludicrous. Just in the context of the Bible, it's like just doesn't happen, and it wouldn't be just breezed over like that,
Right.
So there's one other explanation for the wording, and we looked up the Hebrew wording there, and it was just righteous men and sinful or lustful women. And so it was like the good guys were falling for these women that were just taking them into all kinds of, leading them into sin and stuff like that.
Red light district.
And was that
red light district?
Yeah, sort of, so they were, succumbing to their passions and stuff like that, and leaving the way that that God wanted things to be. And so during the time that man was falling, there were giants, and these men were, mighty men of renown. So
yeah,
I was like, that the sons of God portion is what throws me off in that, because it's just so not the way that any fallen angel is described ever. So, and then I was like, well, if that is true, the way that it's described as a period of time and not necessarily a causation makes a lot more sense. So, and because it says that they're like that afterwards. So then we read later when the Israelites go to the promised land, which is like modern, or that's not modern day Canaan, but it was Canaan then. It's like Syria now. I don't remember exactly what it is geographically now. There's giants in that land too, and they have to go and wipe them out. And then afterward, they run into another giant, Goliath, and he's got like the Kandahar Giant, 6 fingers, 6 toes, and he's like 8.5 feet tall. But
yeah,
he's like one surviving one, and he's like their champion warrior.
Yeah, I was talking to Brian last night when we were going over this in the Discord, and he was bringing up all kinds of like different Norse mythology too, and he was, showing him a lot of the same stuff and some other things as well. And he was like, "Bro, you literally just, told me the story of such and such in the Norse mythology." And I was like, I mean, makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting if all these different like historical stories and writings, they all say the same thing. So why is it so hard to believe?
I think that's the reason that
especially someone who believes in the Bible. I mean, I guess most people don't actually read it, so they probably don't know that it says that stuff. Yeah. But if they did and they read that, then they should believe it. It wouldn't be in the Bible. If they believe the Bible, it wouldn't be in the Bible if it weren't
true. It's in every text. You don't even have to necessarily believe the Bible.
Whatever historical writings you believe in, they all say the same things essentially about that.
Because the overruling dogma, the new religion of science, scientism, right? Like they say that there wasn't giants, that we evolved through the Darwinian evolution, right? And that's actually been disproven. You know what I mean? There's actual mathematicians and biologists and other people who have come to the table for decades now and said that this is bullshit, right? Darwinianism is not answer to everything. You know what I mean? There's too many holes.
Yeah.
It only explains small variations due to like environment, right? Like you might have a species there that might change because of its environment due to Darwinianism.
They're not crossing species,
but they're not. Yeah, there's not new species just coming out of nowhere. That doesn't explain all the species. So, but
I was listening to a biologist. He's like a genome whatever specialist. He was saying that he was messing around with the idea of an Eve and an Adam, right? And he was like, theoretically they would have the gene capacity to produce all different variations of humans. Right. And that's how we have the ability to then make that more specific by breeding with people. He's like, so theoretically, if you go far enough back, you would get to two people that have all of the gene variants. And so he started doing some reverse math and came up with like 10 to 15,000 years. And you would get to a group
Right.
or two people that had all gene variants. I was like, what? That blows. I mean, that's older than like creationism by a few thousand years, but it's not even close to the millions of years that, you know, evolutionary biologists put mankind in like that really slow development. Even in Genesis, in like the first book, or first couple chapters in Genesis, they say they already document the you know, the story of Cain and Abel. It's like the first murder. Cain kills Abel.
Yeah.
Cain's son or grandson is the father of the stringed instrument. So it's like all the way back then, they were already not only just being able to make string out of whatever they're making it out of, but tuning it and music and all of that, like intonations
like
and stuff like that. Like
sophisticated societal
extremely
shit. Yeah.
Extremely. So it's like, I think there was some other guy was like, you know, he had, I don't want to say metals, but something like, you know, some kind of forgery back then, you know, like actual tools all the way back in basically as soon as right after man is created, or, you know, whatever the societies began to form, you've got tools and instruments. Like that's the kind of time you have now where we can now play instruments.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like crazy too, like to think that, you know, like to have all of these stories, right? Even like the Titans, like all this stuff, man, like that they would cover that up to me. You know what I mean? Like that they would hide that information makes total sense, because all of that would just validate like all forms of like spirituality and just like connections to higher levels of consciousness. You know what I mean? Like that would just validate all of that. And they don't
Did
want
they
that.
ever debunk the that imprint of the supposed Noah's Ark in Istanbul?
Oh yeah, that was really interesting.
I'm sure Snopes did. I'm sure Snopes debunked it.
Have you seen the pictures of it?
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that.
Dude, that's mind blowing.
What was I?
Because it's also like geographically accurate.
Where it could be, yeah.
Yeah. You were talking a second ago, and I thought of something and then I forgot it.
I was talking about stringed instruments. I was talking about.
It doesn't even matter, bro. It's all the chemtrails they're spraying lately, man.
Yeah. But what it was cool when people say like ancient technologies and blah blah blah, like that jives right with my beliefs about like what the Bible says about the origins of man and like how advanced we got so quickly. Like right after that, you go into the Tower of Babel. Right after Noah, you go into the Tower of Babel, and you know it says that God divided the languages out and mixed them all up because there's just too much human potential. There's nothing they wouldn't be able to do. And also he wanted people to divide. He wanted them to spread out across the earth. And the theory is that the earth was actually dividing. And so you had the Pangea and everything was splitting up. And so people needed to get everywhere. And they were all congregating instead of getting everywhere before the continent split apart. And so that was like a secondary reason. But it's like, it doesn't say they could have built a tower to heaven, but it does leave it open-ended. Like there's nothing they couldn't accomplish together. And so,
like that could have been metaphorical to some extent, right? Like it's just like an idea, like they could have done anything.
Well, and it also makes sense. Yeah, unity. What is our government and world trying to do? Ruin unity within all of the people in every way, shape, or form.
well,
like we're so split, we would never all be able to work together towards some like higher
that's
power
where I
thing.
think there has been lost civilization and lost technology, because we've only been able to communicate universally around the globe for the last 40 years, maybe. Like English has become the standard maybe in the last 50, 60 years.
Right.
So I can work with somebody in China who doesn't speak English via a translator, and we could do all this internet stuff. And the takeoff since that has been exponential. So if you think between Adam and the Tower of Babel was like over 1,000 years. The first 1,000, like if you went to the year 3000 right now, we're on spaceships going to Mars,
Right.
and beyond.
If space is real.
If space is real,
If space is
right? So you gave us 1,000 years. Now it's Star Trek. You know what I mean? It's Star Wars.
Right.
If you give them 1,000 years back then, I mean, how close could they have gotten to where we're at now?
You just reminded me. Yeah, your mind. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you reminded me of what I thought of earlier. But yeah, like you're making a good point, and I think that that's the control mechanism. I think that all these stories, like maybe, you know, this might piss off some people, but like the Catholic Church, for instance, right? Like maybe in the Catholic Church, rewriting and disposing of books and just like manipulating the word as it's said, right? Like that. Maybe they changed the stories just ever so slightly, and maybe, you know, like the flood and all of these genocides in history, like the Crusades and like the popes going and, you know, eradicating the snakes from Ireland and so on and so forth. Even like the Mongolians, right? You think about Genghis Khan, you think about Napoleon, you think about, you know, all of these, you know, genocides in history. You know, what if the history has been rewritten, and those genocides were really targeting these giant bloodlines, wipe them out, you know, because they don't want them here. You know what I mean? Whoever they is, you know, that was the whole plan. And if you think about the stories, them splitting up humanity, you know, splitting the language, you know, the whole thing, splitting up humanity, it was all just divide and conquer, you know, split everything up, change the stories, and create new languages, create war, you know, just like all of that. You know what I mean?
I think maybe like off of the actual stories of ancient stuff, I think it might be the opposite of that. I think maybe the genocides are carried out by the giants. I mean, you think like how vicious the pharaohs were, and how, you know, like self-glorifying. They're like, I'm going to make a sphinx with my face on it.
Well, that's why I said the Catholic Church, because there's a big thing about the
Vatican. I see what you're saying. They're flipping it because they want to.
Yeah, like they might be the giant bloodline.
Yeah, they're like, okay, we're going to flip it now.
Yeah, the popes are the.
Napoleon was really short.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly. It's like a reverse narrative, controlled opposition, bro, all the way back through history, right? That's not a.
You know what? You know, you're right about that, because they just tried to come out like a few years ago and say that Hitler had a micro penis.
So stupid.
I'm serious. Like that's a thing now.
What?
You know,
and so it's like, what do you do to go and belittle the guy after he's dead? And
what do you say to that? Yeah, what do you do?
Got a micro penis. So it's like, yeah, let's say Napoleon was 3 feet tall,
man,
and let's say funny, you know that Caesar Augustus was gay, or whatever it is. You know, whatever kind of slant they can put on him. You might be right about that.
Well, why are they not?
Giants causing it, and then the shorties went and flipped it back.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, like you said, I said that they did the genocides, right? The Crusades, which was the Templars and all of that, right? The church, right? And then the removing the snakes from Ireland, the church, right? You know, all of these events, and I'm not just like bashing the church, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like they could have done these events. You know, I mean, it's not even that. They, regardless of who they were wiping out, they were wiping people out. So it was fucked up regardless. But like, maybe they were the giants, or are the giants. Maybe that's the big secret. You know, the Vatican holds the Ark of the Covenant. The big secret is that they're just controlling or protecting this bloodline that they know about. You know what I mean? Remember the Da Vinci Code movie? Wasn't that what the whole thing was about? It was Jesus's bloodline. You know what I mean?
Maybe
I'd have to watch it again, because it was a long time ago that I watched it.
That's my whole thing. And I've said that a lot of times, man. I think it's a seed war, man. It's a spiritual seed war. You know what I mean? Like the bloodlines thing, like they don't give a shit about the money. They know that is fake, right? They don't care about the resources that they know are, you know, next to infinite. They want the spiritual seed war shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Bible says it in a few spots where it's like the wicked, they war against the knowledge of God. So it's like they'll just wipe out anything that's got his imprint on it. And it's like, whether you believe in it or not, you can see it happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like we haven't even done that episode on the Jews yet, but
Yeah.
Like
we're
they've gotten a
saving
really
that
rough
one.
shake.
We're saving that one, bro. We got to come
We've
in
been
hot
trying
with
to get
that one.
wiped out for since the dawn of time, man.
Yeah, it's true, man. And like you said, bro, I'm not even necessarily religious, but the more this stuff carries out in front of me and I can see what's going on, like the more it pushes me in that direction. It's like, oh
You
shit, am
can
I
just
missing something
see
here?
there's
Yeah.
a for sure good and a for sure bad that is just
that I
going
know.
at it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That I know. You know what I mean? The hard part for me is just prescribing a name to it, right? Like that's where I have struggles with myself. It's like, what is this called? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
That's my favorite. Literally, is my favorite verse in the Bible where Moses asks who he's talking to. He's like, "Who are you?" And God just says, "I am."
Mm.
Like,
Yeah, see,
that's my answer.
I
I
vibe
am.
with that. I vibe with that. You know what I mean?
That's
For sure.
just-
Yeah.
That's the most amazing answer. Like the most just, I am, dude.
Yeah.
It
I
doesn't
vibe with
matter what
that.
I call myself. I am. And to me, like when he says that, it's like you could just not be
Mhm.
like that, but I am. Woo.
Mhm. Yeah,
Woo.
I can feel that, bro. The omnipresence aspect, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Deep,
I think
guys.
that there's
Super deep.
definitely like the I don't even think that's possible. Like, oh, there's a possibility there's ancient technologies and stuff like that. I think that it for sure was.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of it was lost. I think a lot of it was just applied, but the tribalism obviously impedes that. And I think we're seeing as there's more tribalism now, it's crept up, but I still think that there's enough unity in disciplines that we're seeing that exponential growth again. So you apply that to 1,000 years ago, and I think that I think the Stone Age was probably like 50 years.
Yeah, it's true.
They're like, okay, these stones aren't working. Let's get to metals. And then they get to metals and they're like, all right, let's get to like tech and lasers and stuff and using the sun. And
I think they had advanced like Atlantis, whether Atlantis was real or not, just like the idea of advanced civilizations like Atlantis in previous ages, I totally 100% believe.
What's that
Yeah.
island in like off of the coast? It's off the coast of like the UK. It's like a perfect circle on half of a mountain.
I
I don't know.
feel like I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of the name.
You ever seen it's like, dude, this is the craziest thing ever. Some guy just posted on Instagram and I'll pop it up real quick.
There's a lot of like, I mean, think about the ice age, bro. Like when there was 2-mile thick ice sheet on like half the planet, right? The sea levels were like, I don't know the number, 200, 400 feet lower. So the coasts were so far out in what we think of as the ocean. You know what I mean? So if there was any kind of cataclysm, like, the Younger Dryas event or just like these different cataclysms that scientists are discovering, and the ice age ends, the sea levels rise 300-400 feet. All the civilizations that are on the coast at the time are now 300-400 feet underwater. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
wow, yeah.
Atlantis, the stories of civilization being washed away or floods washing away civilization, I mean, look into Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson. They literally talk about this Younger Dryas event. The comet comes in at 12,000 years ago and hits the ice cap, or parts of it hit the ice cap, and it just essentially causes the end of the ice age in a very, very short period of time. And the sea levels rose that quick, so.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. Like, I mean, you look at places like Pompeii,
Mhm.
whatever was there, gone.
Yeah.
You built something at the bottom of Krakatoa. Well, bye-bye.
Yep.
That's gone. You know what I mean? And all of the people that live there.
Yep.
A
few people get away. So you got nomadic tribes that don't live on the coast that survive, maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Some of the giant bloodlines and whatever, the elites of the time, they might have been able to survive and continue into the next, now, right?
Yeah.
Well, even like there's I was thinking about this a couple of days ago. There's I was reading no, I was watching a video about some Greek, I think it's Greek or Italian, I'm pretty sure it's Greek, dialects that are like 60 people are left that speak it, or less. Like 60 is a generous number.
Right.
And it's like we have they have words to describe things that we don't have. Like there was something I was reading, like there was a length measurement that they had, or a portion. There's like a word for your elbow to your hand.
Right.
We don't have a name for just that. We've got forearm, palm, hand, fingers. But there's an actual word that they have just for that. And I was like, man, if they had words, like they've got words that we don't have. And other language, every language just has words that we don't have, you know, and we have words that they don't have. But it's like this whole dialect, you know, could just be gone. And their whole language and their way of describing things and their stories and the words that they use in those stories specifically, gone.
Yep.
You know, so like all that information that gets lost, like forget about actual, like, this is how we built a pyramid. Just the words used to describe the time and the tools that they used and the knowledge they had, just the words themselves are gone.
Well, yeah. And what wasn't gone.
And you'd never know because 60 people spoke it and they're dead. And so it's not like, oh yeah, they used to speak this language and it's written here. Nope, just gone.
And then think about like ancient civilizations that get wiped out after the Ice Age. Like whatever did survive got burned in the burning of the Library of Alexandria, and whatever survived that got tucked away in the Vatican archives. You know what I mean? So it's like,
that's the other thing too. Is like when like empires would come in, they just wiped out everything, every vestige of whoever they
destroyed statues, burned all the scrolls,
everything.
They literally, not only that, they did a seed war. What would they do? They would rape all the women. They would literally
they muddy the bloodline
with this, and they would interject with their bloodlines. Now that could be, you could chalk that up to a whole number of things in the ancient day, right? But like, what does that stem from? In my opinion, it stems from the seed war, right? Conquer and then implant my seed so that my genetics carry on, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's nuts. Like when you can read like the ancient historians when Rome sacked Jerusalem and destroyed their temple. They destroyed it and took out the foundation stones, which were massive. Like not one, like when the Bible said not one stone will be left upon another, they were like, that's crazy. Who would rip up the foundation? The Romans came in and ripped up this foundation. So they don't even know exactly where it was anymore. You can't even go and excavate it and be like, this is where it was and this is how big it is. There's no record of it. Like that's how thorough these rulers would come in and destroy another. So like, you know, Pharaoh, whatever his name is, comes in and just is like, oh yeah, we're just going to wipe out everybody in this country and they're gone. You know, well, we're going to just come in and take out these guys.
They're doing it today too, man. Look at Syria, bro.
I mean, that's what, like, how big was the book burning with the Nazis? You know, they're just, all of it, burn it. All the books.
Yeah, people think that Hitler was the last of that, right? They're like, oh, the end of, you know, genocide and targeted genetic fucking extermination. Like they think that Hitler was the end of it, right? And a lot of people think that Hitler was killed and that was the end of it. Like that whole story that we're given is true, which is complete fucking bullshit, right? Which we could do a whole episode on, but you know, like even if it was true, like he's not the last person to be involved with this shit. And we found all the baby factory shit and all the Epstein shit and blah 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 blah. We know they're still doing this. You know what I mean? So
the other thing too, this is, and I learned this from talking with people that I know travel to China all the time. There are, like, back in the day, because it still happens today, so it for sure happened back then. You know, if you had a neighboring nation that you were going to go and attack, and maybe they were nice guys, but you needed to like rally up the boys, you start talking all kinds of smack about them. You know, they're huge and they're, you know, killing their own young and they're sacrificing to the gods who will rain fire on our nation and then blah, 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 and all this kind of crazy inflammatory talk. And then you're like, yeah, let's go kill them. And then they go kill them. China does that with the US. Like today, they do the exact same thing. They think that everybody's just coming over here, just shooting everybody all the time. Millions and millions of gun deaths. And it's like not even close to that. Like, there's so many stories I hear of like, oh yeah, I met this person over there in China, and we're talking, and they're like, how do you even go to school? Like, there's, how do you go to the supermarket when there's just people running around with guns just shooting all night? And it's like, that doesn't happen. But that's what their government tells them.
Yep.
Yeah, and don't they like block what they can see on the internet?
Exactly.
And
They
everything?
completely censor everything.
Propagandize. I mean, they just put the boogeyman in front of you. It's always, here's the thing, right? It's always a boogeyman, and that's never a boogeyman that you can verify, right? Like, think about Osama bin Laden, right? We all know his face. We all know the story, blah, blah, blah. They even threw his ass off the side of the boat after they killed him with no verification, because that wasn't weird, right? But like, we don't even know Osama bin Laden was a real person. The whole story could have been fabricated. You know what I mean? Like, same with what's going on now with this whole, pandemic shit. It's like that we don't know. You can't see this and verify with empirical evidence that this virus is doing any harm to you. You're just taking evidence off of everybody else. And like, and I was just looking this up because I forgot the guy's name, Goldstein, in George Orwell's 1984, right? Goldstein was the guy that they put up on the TV. He was the traitor, right? He was the bad guy in the town, right, or in the city, and they'd put Goldstein up on the TV, and everybody would have their moment of, yeah, fuck Goldstein, right? And it was the propaganda, but Goldstein didn't even exist. He wasn't even real. He was created by Big Brother as the propaganda tool to just give everybody somebody to hate.
I need to read that book.
You need to read that book, dude. He wrote this in the 40s, thinking that this would happen in the 80s, right?
He was a little off.
A little off.
Pretty close.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, yeah, Goldstein didn't even exist. He didn't even exist.
I brought that up to say, like, imagine that, like, I can imagine that some of the stories that we hear about, like, giants or, magic wizards, all this kind of stuff those stories could be just from the people who won the war talking just a bunch of nonsense about the people they killed. So it's like, oh man, like, maybe it's like you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because we do exactly what they could be doing. It's like, so if we read if China wins the war, right, and then everybody's reading China's history of America, it's a bunch of nutcases with AK-47s. Everybody's got one, even the kids, and we're all blasting each other to death in the streets. But that's not how it is.
Yeah, if Germany won the war, we'd all be speaking German, and we'd all be praising Hitler, and our history books would all give us this history of whatever the fuck they wanted. Yep.
Yeah, America would be like some, horrible country, and the UK and, the Jews would be whatever they said that, whatever they thought the Jews were, and
Gone,
China
probably
would be whatever they think China is. And it would just, all of history from that point on, or that point back, would be whatever they said it was.
Yep.
It's just
Victor's right to history books. Everything is a lie. Question everything. Trust the experts.
Yeah. That's a good way to end
anyways,
this episode.
Yep. Go check out everything. Website has everything. Just go to the website. I put everything there. So just go to the website, shadowbandpodcast.com. Next episode, guys. Hollow Earth.
Okay.
Hollow Earth. I'm down with that. I've been on that lately. Okay. Boom. Sounds good.
Halo Earth?
Well. Peace.